Okay, so yeah, I'm David Maier, was introduced already. So I'm working as a senior solutions engineer for Couchbase here in the DACH region. And actually, most surprising, I'm not a JavaScript developer, right? So I'm developing JavaScript from time to time, so don't kill me, please. But I'm also developing Java and .NET and stuff like that from time to time. So I think I have a development background and also a database background, which is the reason why I'm working as a technical person for a database company, right? So let's talk a little bit about the agenda. So at first we will have a short introduction about Couchbase. How many of you know Couchbase? Hey, more than expected. How many of you work for TMG? Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I will give a short introduction regarding Couchbase. So some of you may see it again, but the rest of the audience will I think, benefit from it. Okay, so then we will talk a little bit about the stack components. Christoph already mentioned all of them, so this chapter is basically that. And then a little bit about how to create application skeletons more easy by using Yeoman. How many of you use Yeoman or Yeoman? Okay, how many of you use the mean stack? Hey, not that much, right? So you should start to go with the keen stack instead the mean stack, right? Okay, so and then we will dig a little bit deeper by showing an example application or have a Q&A session, right? Okay, what's Couchbase? So Couchbase is basically in the first step in-memory key value store. It's also actually a persistent key value store, but one of the key use cases of Couchbase is to have a distributed key value store, right? And Couchbase is using memory a lot, so each node has usually assigned a huge amount of memory, which means we are talking about gigabytes of RAM, or even terabytes of RAM, and not like in other database systems, hundreds of megabytes of RAM. So in the next step, Couchbase is also a distributed document database. How many of you know MongoDB and work with it? Quite often? Hey. Okay, so you know what a document database is actually. So Couchbase is a document database coming from a key value store world, which means that a document is basically a key value pair, whereby the value is a JSON format string, right? And not only this makes us to a document database, the fact that you can index a document and search for documents and stuff like that makes us a document database. And it will even become cooler in the next release of Couchbase. Then we will have a query language, a SQL-like query language in order to work with JSON documents, right? Okay. Oh, we didn't see the slides, sorry about that. Okay, in the next step, we have a product which is named Couchbase Lite, and together with another product which is named Couchbase Sync Gateway, it is all together, so Couchbase Server, Couchbase Sync Gateway, Couchbase Lite, our Couchbase mobile solution. And what you get is actually a lightweighted document database, which is embedded within your application on your mobile device, and it is synchronizing data via the Sync Gateway to Couchbase Server, but also between multiple Couchbase Lite instances. Right. I will actually not explain today too much about Couchbase Mobile, because the topic is the key stack. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about what makes Couchbase unique, right? So Couchbase is a multi-purpose database, as mentioned before. We are a key value store, we are a distributed, highly available cache, right? We are a document database, we have a mobile solution, all this stuff. And the key point, or one of the key considerations for Couchbase, or NoSQL in general, is performance and scalability. It's really easy to add new nodes to a Couchbase cluster. It's actually just 2 clicks in our admin UI, or one REST call, and yeah, it works really easy, so it's easy scalable, right? Another point is, that we are always on and available, which means that we have intra-cluster replication here. So replicas are kept within the cluster, right, by taking care about the cat theorem, for instance, by having only one active copy and the other copies are there for failover reasons. And also by having cross-data center replication, which means that you can replicate data from one source cluster over to another one and even bi-directional. Right? Okay, and simplified administration there. I mean, our admin is really looking nice. We have admin REST services, stuff like that. And one key point as well is that our schema is flexible. So in fact, the database system is not enforcing any database schema, right? You can add properties on demand to your JSON document and stuff. Okay, use cases, HA caching, high availability caching, I've already explained this. This is one of the use cases we see quite often because of our history. Couchbase is coming from Membase and from Couch1. Some of you may know Couch1 from Couch2, right? And Membase, the Membase part is actually, or Memcached part is actually a highly, or a caching layer, let's say. And what Couchbase has is a caching tier and data persistence tier. I will show this later. And another use case is profile management. Right? So storing user profiles, storing session tokens, are really profile your user. So because Couchbase has really high performance, which means thousands, hundreds of thousands of operations per second, and a really good latency behavior, what you can do is actually, customers of ourselves are doing that, is you can log in somewhere, and in the process of the login, you can profile the user in order to give him some recommendation right after login, stuff like that. And one of the new trends actually is the Internet of Things. Right? Given the fact that we have a lightweighted database which can run inside of an embedded system, and such an embedded system can have attached multiple sensors, right? We can collect all this data and synchronize it back to a big cluster in order to be analyzed there. Right? So this is one of the use cases. Okay, a little bit about it's actually not the architecture, but it's explaining how write operation is working, and it's mentioning some architectural components. So if you write a document, it's going through the managed cache. Right? From the managed cache, it's added to a disk write queue and to a replication queue, and it is asynchronously written by our persistence engine to disk, and also replicated over to another server of the cluster. Right? So the Couchbase cluster, let's say the minimum recommended size is 3 nodes. So Couchbase is by default a distributed system. Right? You may ask, hey, if it is asynchronously written to disk in this step, right? What's about consistency? Right? So, as a lot of NoSQL systems, we are eventually consistent, but you can enforce consistency on an operations level. So what you can say is, okay, for this write operation, please make sure that it was at least written once to the master, right? And only return the operation as successful as soon as this happened, right? So this way, you ensure that you have at least one guaranteed copy on the master, right? But you can also say something like, hey, make sure that all 3 copies, you can have up to 4 copies, 1 active data item and 3 replicas, are written to disk. The downside is if you do that, right, it may have a performance impact. So it's consistency versus performance. It's every time the case. Okay. This is how the Couchbase cluster is looking like from the schema. So each cluster node has active data and replica data, right? So, and what is unique is actually that, for instance, document 9, which is in server 1, has only an active copy of this one document on server 1, and not 2 or 3. So the data is evenly distributed, right? And you only have one active copy of a document. What you have is, you have a replica copy of document 9, and this replica copy is there just for failover purposes. So as soon as one of the nodes is dying, this replica copy becomes activated, right? So you don't lose data there. And as mentioned before, we can have a to 3 replica copies. Okay. So auto sharding. I will explain a little bit what this cluster map means, because the sharding happens on the client side actually. Let's jump to the Keen stack as soon as possible. But I think most of you, those never saw Couchbase before, find this interesting to understand why you would like to use Couchbase within your Node.js application or your JavaScript application development. Okay, so how does it work? So actually we said, okay, all this data is automatically sharded across those nodes. So we have a hash-based sharding, a little bit similar as Cassandra, right? Which means that as soon as you write a document based on the key of the key value pair, remember the document is a key value pair, or you hash this document, right, or hash on the key by using this hash function, and what you get is a bucket number. Hey, what's a bucket? A bucket actually is a partition, and the reason why it is named bucket is because the database Couchbase is named a bucket. Right? So the database is like a container, we name it bucket. Yeah. And each bucket has 1024 partitions, buckets. And those partitions are equally distributed across the cluster. So if you have 2 nodes, each node has 512 buckets, active buckets, right? Depending on the number of replicas, you will have additional buckets, but for now, let's assume that we have active ones, which means you hash, you get a bucket number, for instance 7, and the bucket or the cluster map contains the information which bucket is currently located on which server, right? And our clients are actually called smart clients because they are getting updates. So they maintain this cluster map, and as soon as the topology changes, for instance, you are adding new nodes here, they will update the cluster map inside of the client in order to reflect this change. Even if you remove nodes, it could be questions. Sure. Okay, good. So that's about Couchbase. Let's start to talk a little bit more about the Keen stack. So we are quite keen to provide you the Keen stack, even if the stack itself is more something which is existent in the theory, but we are providing tools around the stack in order to simplify life. So Keen means Couchbase, Express, AngularJS, and Node.js. And I mean, most of you are using Express, right? Most of you are using Node.js, I guess, because it's the Node.js user group, hey? And I think it's not unusual to use AngularJS as the MVC framework on the client side, right? How many of you use AngularJS? How many of you are JavaScript, hardcore JavaScript developers? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I guess most of you are more familiar with all those frameworks than I am, but yeah, fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about the stack. Actually, it should be called the MNUG stack, but MNUG sounds just horrible, which means that we name it the Keen stack. Given the fact that there is a mean stack there. So on top you have the AngularJS on the client side within your web application as a web framework, which allows you to do things a little bit better in JavaScript. Usually it does on the client side. Actually, I like AngularJS because I hate this, how to tell, confusing amount of JavaScript stuff. It brings a little bit of order into this JavaScript stuff, which means that you define your model, or actually the model is implicitly within that. You define your views by using templates, and you define your controllers, you define services and stuff. On the server side, you will have Node.js and Express. Basically used, I would say, most often used in order to provide RESTful web services. Is this also your opinion? Who's writing RESTful web services? Would it really write an application within UI by using Express? Which is possible actually. I mean, you can use, hey, hey, one guy, quite careful. Yeah, okay. And Couchbase server cluster in the background to store the data actually, right? A distributed, as mentioned, documented database system to store data. And what we have is a Node.js module in order to access the data, right? So this is the step 3. Okay. Application scaffolding made easy. I created a small website which is called CEAN store, and actually you are invited to contribute, right? It's an open source project. It's actually currently starting. It took me about 3 days to put something together for it, to write some generator, stuff like that. So it's currently work in progress. But if you enjoy JavaScript development and you would like to contribute, just contact me. It's david.maier@couchbase.com. Okay, so it's based on Yome, which means who of you is using this? Most of the persons who are right. Yeah. So, and requirements are a C build environment. I'm not sure if this is usually the case for you, but our library, Node.js library, is actually a wrapper around C library, which is provided by us. And what happens is, if you resolve the dependencies, it downloads also all the source code for C library, compiles it, stuff like that, right? So, you should have, if you have a built environment or a Linux machine, you should have Maier and GCC installed. Node.js, sure. Node package manager, Yo, and currently there is actually no npm prepared. We should change this, right? But what you can do is actually you can just clone the repository and then perform an npm link, right? So this is the installation of it. And then, yeah, you can create as much as you want, right, as applications for Couchbase, if you want to do that. So all you have to do is you have to create the application directory as your project directory. Then you can just call or execute yo Maier. And as soon as you did this, you are getting some questions, right? One of the questions is, hey, what is your Couchbase host? Hey, what is your bucket? Remember, a bucket is like a database. Or what is your password for a bucket? And the dependency management happens by Maier, right? Which is part of this. You understand. Okay. Finally, you can just start the application by saying, okay, Node app.js. And what you get is an application which is looking like this. It has just a welcome page and an add test document button in order to double check your connection to Couchbase. But what you can do then is, actually you can extend it by using sub-generators, adding new controllers, stuff like that. So it's actually just an application skeleton based here. Okay, Outlook, and yeah, one of the reasons I'm here is to engage persons like you, right? So what we need is additional sub-generators. This is actually quite easy to achieve. Right? So most of the sub-generators are already out there with other generators. Something like create an angular controller or create an angular view is not that hard. The grunt field script is actually also quite easy, but yeah, the first step I just used an app.js file instead of field script. And if you have some ideas for a cool, full-featured sample application, here I have one. I will show you the example application now. So, but yeah, you have to decide if you like it or not. Okay. The sample application is basically something like a Q&A application, right? So when I showed it to Christoph the first time, he said, "Hey, it's looking like conference question." It is not. Yeah, it's not actually. Yeah, but it's quite simpler than that, and it's just an example application. It shows you how to use it. Yeah. So what were the features? The features or requests for features where, hey, it should be possible to add a question, list all questions, search for questions, add comments to questions, and also upload questions as CSV file. And it follows basically the Keen stack with one rule difference. It also uses Elasticsearch for full text indexing, which is actually not unusual. So even relational database systems are using it for full text indexing. You should use the right tool for the right thing. And Couchbase is a great database system for documents, but Elasticsearch is a great tool for indexing, full text indexing. So if you want to add some search functionality based on full text, then Elasticsearch is your friend. Okay, so on the Elasticsearch part, it was quite easy. Couchbase has a feature which is called XDCR, Cross Data Center Replication, which allows you to transfer data from one cluster to another one. Right? And what we did is actually we provided a transport plugin for Elasticsearch. So Couchbase is thinking that the Elasticsearch cluster on the other side is behaving like a Couchbase cluster, right? So what we can do is actually, we can say, okay, hey, please set me up this replication link and replicate everything you get into Couchbase over to Elasticsearch. You can customize the mapping inside of Elasticsearch to map it to specific data types, apply dynamic templates. It's quite Elasticsearch focused, but the key message here is we have a really good integration with Elasticsearch inside of Couchbase. And not only with Elasticsearch, also with LucidWorks, so if you prefer Solar instead of Elasticsearch, it works exactly the same way. Okay, and on the side of Couchbase, we created a bucket which is named Q&A, right? And what I did is I created a view in order to access all of the documents, just to show how it works. You can use views even for filtering, searching, querying, whatever you want. But in this case, it's just used as a kind of primary index. And on the server side, application server side, that's Node.js side, I used Express in order to create a RESTful web service, basically. And on the side of Angular, I wrapped those RESTful web service by having the service wrappers and the service ones are then used by controllers in order to set the views. Right? So it's something which should be quite, you should be used to it if you know Node.js, JavaScript. Okay. What I will do is actually I will try to do a kind of live demo. Let's see if the demo gods are with me. Oh, I'm not. No longer, right? Okay. Fine. See. Okay. Let's start with this Keen stuff, right? So can you see this? Even in the last row? Hard maybe, right? Better? Okay. Okay, how does Keen work? What we do is we set... Better? Okay, fine. We create a new directory which is named test3, for instance. This is our project directory. And what we do is we just say, okay, yo, not so, yo, Keen, my app, yeah. So what happens now is, that it is asking us for a Couchbase server node. So we say, okay, it's, which one is it actually? Wait a moment, please. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so let's take this one. This is a 3-node cluster which is currently running on my machine. So we say it's 160, and what we say is okay. The bucket name is my app, and the password is test, right? And what it does now is it downloads all the dependencies, stuff like that, right? Like you may know it from human generators at all. And what we do now is we create
this bucket my app, right? And we set the password test, and we say it should have 25 or 256 megabyte of RAM allocated. Okay, and we create the bucket. This takes a little moment, and as soon as we have this, it is created, right? And as you can see here, let's take the time in order to investigate a little bit our admin UI. So what you see here is some metrics, how the server or the cluster behaves, right? We have a 3-node cluster here. In this case, currently it's not that busy, right? You can see CPU is at 4% and stuff like that. But the data buckets, documents are looking usually like this, right? This is a document for brewery, for instance, here, and our data bucket has currently not yet data in it. But as soon as this is finished, we can just switch over. In the meantime, I can show you this example application, which is exactly following this stack, right? And what it does basically is it uses a Couchbase view in order to list you some questions and answers, right? So something like, hey, what is Couchbase server, by having a category or something like that, right? So you can even add new ones. So let's say TNG or MNUG version 3.2, right? And it's just an example application, right? Category is, let's say Node.js. Question is, did you like the presentation? Maybe not. Yeah, let's be optimistic. Let's say yes. Okay, so we added the new question object, and now, as you see, it's here, right? And Elasticsearch is used for search purposes. So something like category mobile, for instance. Let's search for this, and then we see, hey, or everything which is tagged with mobile. So this was basically born based on this application template, which I will show as soon as possible. So here we are in our test 3 application there, and what I do now is just start the application. It should be connected now, and I prepared actually a window for it. So, hey, there is the application skeleton. You can see that our example application is actually looking exactly the same as the application skeleton. And if you say, hey, add test document, what you see is that the test document was added, right? So as soon as we go over to this data bucket, by looking into my app, we can see, hey, message hello Couchbase. And the idea was basically to provide you just an application skeleton which allows you to immediately start your JavaScript development with Couchbase, right? So what you have is an application skeleton which already has all the pieces you may need. So if you look at this application, then it already has some methods mapped to resources. Those could be RESTfully accessed, right, in order to perform stuff with buckets, right? In this case, bucket get multi in order to get based on multiple keys or stuff like that, right? So it's a really simple application, and on side of the client, we have those controllers, or let's go to the service one. We have this QA service, and the QA service is basically just wrapping the RESTful service which is on the server side, right? Which can then be used by some controllers. But this is already the example application. The skeleton is providing you the same, but just with one sample controller, one sample service, and one simple RESTful method which is already using our Couchbase Node.js library in order to enable you to add the document, right? It's just to have a starting point to get started your development against Couchbase. Okay. So I'm basically finished, I would say.